glad you're with us this morning, and we wanted to invite you into some of the things that we are participating in. We are continuing our online services. We are also providing Facebook and Zoom meetings and updates. We also have email updates. If you are not getting the email updates, but you have an email, please email the office at bishopumc.org or pastors@esierraumc.org. So those are a couple of things that you can do to help stay in touch. There are a couple of other things that you will find helpful to our continued gatherings in this way, but also to be able to come back together later. One of the things is to continue to be part of our quarantine as we are teammates together in our stay home, stay healthy, and we want to continue to encourage you to stay home as much as possible and only make necessary trips out. If you need help making those trips, you can also email or call the church office, and we will see what we can do to help you with those, whether it is some of the services in town that are available for that, or through some of our folks who have offered to help with that. So those are a couple of things that we've got going on. We also want to invite your prayer requests. If you have prayer requests as we continue to worship together, please send those to us at pastors@esierra.org. pastors@esierraumc.org or at office@bishopumc.org. So thank you very much for joining us this morning, and we look forward to joining you in worship throughout this week as we worship in devotion, as we worship this morning in music and song, and as we continue to hear the word of Christ. Amen. Please join me in an attitude of prayer as we bring our petitions before God. Great God, you conquer death. In our hearts we know this, but we cannot comprehend what it means. You bring us into a world that frightens us beyond our courage, that weakens us beyond our strength, that strengthens us beyond our belief. Yet you have entrusted it to our care. We see it lying there in the palm of our hands, almost wanting to give it back, to let you have your way with it without giving us a say. But it is not ours to return. We must depend on you, for only you can raise up life where life has never lived. We praise you, O God, and our praise humbles us. Be with those whose souls and bodies need soothing touch. You know their needs. Return them to us with your power, that through your presence we might resurrect and restore, revive and renew. And in the words of St. Francis, where there is hatred, let us sow love. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. Amen.
We are one in the Spirit. We are one in the Lord. We are one in the Spirit. We are one in the Lord. And we pray that our unity will one day be restored. And they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love. We will work with each other. We will work side by side. We will work with each other. We will work side by side. And we'll guard each one's dignity and save each one's pride. And they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love.
This is Romans 8, 6 through 11. To set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the Spirit is life and peace. For this reason, the mind that is set on the flesh is hostile to God. It does not submit to God's law. Indeed, it cannot. And those who are in the flesh cannot please God. But you are not in the flesh. You are in the Spirit, since the Spirit of God dwells in you. Anyone who does not have the Spirit of Christ does not belong to him. But if Christ is in you, though the body is dead because of sin, the Spirit is life because of righteousness. If the Spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, he who raised Christ from the dead will give life to your mortal bodies also through his Spirit that dwells in you.
Good morning and welcome to worship. I really wanted to start by asking each one of you, where is your mind right now? Romans is talking about what it means to be centered in thoughts of the flesh versus centered in thoughts of the Spirit. And so I wanted to take a minute to think about what does that mean for us right now, today. If your thoughts are centered in the flesh, you might be thinking about anxiety, you might be really self-protective, or you may be taking risks without thinking of others. You might be greedy with the supplies that you're garnering. But overall, it's a spirit of thinking that's self-centered and not community-centered or spirit-centered. It is a type of thinking that really focuses in on that YOLO mentality. You only live once, I gotta take care of myself, I don't wanna get sick, I don't wanna die. And really that's the first thing on my mind as I'm going through every day. It creates more anxiety and it creates more fear. It creates situations where some have a lot and others have nothing. That's the flesh-centered mentality. But there's another way to be, and that's a spirit-centered thinking. That's a centered thinking that really thinks about community first and ourselves as part of that community. When we're centered in our spirit thinking, we are about trusting God, trusting one another, trusting that it is going to work out and we're going to play our part in it. We are people who are thinking about how to build our faith and the faith of others. We think about the things that have happened in the past that God has brought us through. And we start thinking about ways to encourage each other towards that. And we begin to think about looking for creative ways to serve. When we are spirit-centered people, we recognize that really we are not human beings having spiritual experiences, but we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And so with those thoughts in mind, I wanted to share another passage from Paul about thinking and how we should think and what we should think about. Comes from Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 through 9. Paul says, "Do not worry about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, beloved, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, and if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Keep on doing the things you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, and the God of peace will be with you." The power of our thoughts really can't be overstated, because think of it like a circle. What happens when we think? Our thoughts become ideas. Our ideas become actions. Our actions become behaviors. Our behaviors become the community norm, and that influences the life we share, and then we're back to what that does to our thoughts. It's a cycle, and it's very powerful. But you could go the other way if you're a spiritual thinker, because right now everything has paused for a moment, and it's given us a chance to recenter. That's our first R of 4. Recenter. It's a time of recentering. It's a time to really think about who we are as Christians, as people of faith, as part of the human family, as people in the world, and recenter into what kind of a life and what kind of a world do we really want to have. Do we want one of fear and flesh-centered thinking, or do we want one of community and hope? The second R I want to talk about is recharging. When we're recentering, we're grounding ourselves in God's divine providence. We are really thinking about ways to shift our sense of what we need to be doing every day so that we can take care of our body, mind, and spirit so that we will be our best self for such a time as this. It does help your immune system to do this, but it also helps your spiritual body to be able to be ready for the task at hand. The third R is reframe. And in this R, I want to suggest that we could take that entire model of thinking, the circle of thinking that I just put forward, and we could think about it the opposite way. Instead of our individual thoughts bringing together the life we share, what if, from the beginning, we were thinking not just about how we fit into everything, but how everything could be different because of that thought? So instead of working on models that we've been doing, everything has now paused, and we can start to look at things very differently. For example, we've been thinking about things like healthcare for a long time. We've been so grateful for our healthcare team, doctors and nurses and things that take care of us. And we've struggled with ways to make healthcare easier, better, more accessible for more people. And how do we do that? And how do we shift from the systems that we have right now, where even on good and normal days, we don't always have all that we need for all the people in our care? And now that we see in terms of shifts in climate that bring about different bugs, because when the climate shifts, things will happen to create situations for different bugs to grow that will then sometimes turn into these pandemics. Now we are in a situation where we are not prepared to be able to think about healthcare beefing it up and having health care available for everyone and making sure everything is staffed and making sure everybody has access to it. And we're seeing the dangers of that. What could we do to strengthen our communities, to strengthen our health care, that in this moment that we can come up with creative thoughts on how to do that? What could we do to love our neighbor and to be less individualistic and more thinking about community in our daily lives? Because we were really never that independent from each other. We're all interdependent with one another. We see that in the ways that we need our grocery store workers and our truckers, the people who are delivering from our restaurants, and the people who are trying to take care of seniors in their need. Those are not new things. It's just exacerbated by the fact that we can't do it for ourselves right now. Not all of us. So in this moment, instead of thinking of what we've lost, think of what we could potentially gain. Reframe all of this and think of ways that as we deal with this situation and come through it, that we could come out as a much stronger, much healthier community and ready for whatever comes in the future because of our appreciation for one another and the ways that we interact during this time. And the fourth thing that's an R that I want to lift up is resurrect. If we are successful in reframing what we need to do right now, if we're successful in thinking about things that will change our communal life and will really impact us so that the life we share is a beautiful and better thing, to level up what we're doing, level up in love, level up in hope, level up in faith, level up in trust, level up in everything that we're doing so that we can come together and have a resurrection. Easter and the Easter season is coming. What if we resurrect the core values of the Christian faith? Values of community, values of living into the Spirit. What if we became a real core team of love, not fear? I encourage you to think about these things today. And as we go into the preparations for Holy Week next week, I pray that you start thinking with me and praying with me, how in the world can we utilize every bit of our creative energy to not let our thoughts be trapped in fear and fleshly thinking, but to elevate our thoughts to spiritual thinking and hope and community building and trying to build a better today and a brighter tomorrow. Amen.
Hello, Facebook and YouTube family. Today we have the special privilege of having as a guest in our worship service, Tracy Asper, who has been a nurse in our community for a number of years and is also continuing to be a nurse now during this crisis. So as we talked about thinking differently and how we want to think differently in order to make a better impact in our communities, we have reached out to Tracy so that she can help us to think together on how we can improve our own thinking and actions for this moment today. So Tracy, hi.
Good morning.
It's wonderful to have you with us. Could you please tell us a little bit about how we can be more loving and in helping the health of our community? What do we really need to be thinking about right now?
I'm super excited to speak to everyone online today because we as a community can love each other and can take care of each other by doing things to keep each other not isolated. We are asking people to do social distancing, and I'd like to use a different term. I'd like to say physical distancing. Remember that our families and our loved ones are staying home and away, but they are emotionally needing support. So for those of you who are trying to be the church, I ask that you continue to call and check on the people that are home by themselves, especially those who don't have other family members to talk with or play board games with or be entertained by. So make those phone calls, send those notes and cards, find out if these people need you to buy their groceries when you're going to the grocery store. In the meantime, be sure to do social distancing, as the term means to stay, away from others by at least 6 feet. And just really wash your hands a lot and try to keep your hands away from your faces. If you are getting sick, be sure to stay home. Call your healthcare provider if you need help. If you're worried, if you're getting short of breath, make sure you're checking in. Some people will need to go to be examined, and some people can stay home. So by staying home, if you're getting sick, if you're not getting into trouble with your illness, you're preventing the spread throughout our community. So those are just a few tips, things that you can do.
Thank you so much for that, Tracy. I also had talked with you previously about some of the cool things that are happening that are hopeful things right now that you're seeing from the creativity of our community or from tech industries that might be helping our healthcare. Could you tell us a little bit about those things?
What's really amazing to me is how creative people become when there's a need. And so with this pandemic, there's a need. And I had a phone call from Google recently where they have a big group of scientists, engineers that are trying to find out, what do different communities need? What do rural communities need? What do cities need? What do healthcare providers need and hospitals need? And they're trying to come up with ideas. One of the cool things they're doing is 3D printing, where they use computers and they actually make items using these 3D printers. So recently, they're making face shields at a really low cost, because face shields are a really important personal protective item that people working in the healthcare industry can use. They're also making these 3D plastic masks where you put in an insert filter as another potential option for addressing the shortage of personal protective equipment. I'd also like to highlight the incredible work that's being done by members of our community, all of our seamstresses, all of our quilters, who are using every bit of scrap material they have to make cloth masks. Those cloth masks can be put onto faces when you go to the grocery store, or if you're going to see a shut-in briefly. It helps you to not put your hands on your face, which is really protective. And we also, in the healthcare industry, can put those over our respirator masks, the N95 masks, to keep the outside surface of the mask clean, so that those masks can be reused over and over again by the healthcare worker until such time as they become soiled or they're no longer holding their seal around the face. So those cloth masks that all of our amazing seamstresses across the county are using, are making for us, are being used. And that to me is ingenuity. I think we're seeing some really creative things, people coming together using their brain power to help take care of our community. So it's amazing.
It is amazing that moments of crisis really bring out the best in people in a lot of ways. And so we're still making sure that we're trying to encourage people to think about what they're doing and how they're doing it. So as we go into these next moments together, some of the things that we're thinking about are, what can we do to help the staff at these different places in the hospital and whatnot? How can we help these nurses to be able to better serve our community? So hopefully we can come up with some creative ideas. We've already done the masks, but there may be other things. Perhaps we can come together and create care packages, like with pre-packaged snacks and things like that. Perhaps we can find other ways that we can help the people in our communities. If you're interested in being part of that discussion, I hope that you will let us know. We lost Tracy for just a minute, but now we've gotten her back. So Tracy, are there ways that we can actually help the staff of different places as they are caring for us beyond what I just mentioned, which is the care packages and things like that? But tell us, what do you need, or what do you think people need in order for them to feel cared for, the staff cared for, and how can we be more helpful for the staff?
So I think putting together some care package is excellent. It probably should be things that are packaged so that when the staff members go to open them, we can assure that the packaging is clean. We're not transmitting coronavirus. As it's busier over the next few weeks, some of our staff will not be able to take breaks. Our shifts are important in being of our families. It is very, very difficult to leave a family member at the hospital and not be able to visit them. We ask that you use technology, cell phones, and talk to the family and stay connected with them, but don't come to the hospital to visit. Remember that we're trying to protect the staff, the patients, and the community by restricting visitation. We understand how painful that is for family members and friends to not. It is the safe and best thing to do. So please don't give the staff a hard time for being told you can't visit or that you should wait in a car while your loved one is in the emergency room. So those would be very cool things.
Thank you for that reminder. Yeah, it is uncomfortable sometimes for us to not be able to be present with those we love when they're going through sickness and stress. And so that's one of the particular hard things of this moment, but we certainly appreciate all that our nurses, doctors, respiratory therapists, all the different people that are caring for us. We are very, very grateful for what you're doing. And so we want to be of most help to you. So we're going to pass that around to our neighbors. And if you're interested in being a part of people who are helping our healthcare teams to feel supported and loved and nurtured through care packages or other things, please email us at pastors@esierraumc.org. Again, that's pastors@esierraumc.org. Thanks so much for joining us, Tracy. And now we're going to shift back into our worship service with the Jesus is the Rock in a Weary Land, led by the Lambs.
Jesus is a rock in a weary land, a weary land, a weary land. My Jesus is a rock in a weary land, a shelter in the time of storm. No one can do like Jesus, not a mumbling word he said. He went walking down to Lazarus' grave and he raised him from the dead. Oh, Jesus is a rock in a weary land, a weary land, a weary land. Oh, Jesus is a rock in a weary land, a shelter in the time of storm. When Jesus was on earth, the flesh was very weak. He took a towel and girded himself, and he washed his disciples' feet. Jesus is a rock in Savior, He whom I love so well. He has the power of victory and the keys of death and hell. Oh, Jesus is a rock in a weary land, a weary land, a weary land. My Jesus is a rock in a weary land, a shelter in the time of storm. Oh, Jesus is a rock in a weary land, a weary land, a weary land. Oh, my Jesus is a rock in a weary land, a shelter in the time of storm, a shelter in the time of storm.
Receive now this benediction. May your hearts be strong, knowing that God hears your faintest prayer and will answer with an unexpected word in an unexpected place. Nothing can remove you from the love of God. The Lord will summon life forth from every darkened tomb. Amen.
What? Are you still here? Great! Because if you're still here, we want to know that not only are we glad that you joined us this morning, but we want to hear your comments and reflections on how it went. We know we had a little bit of a tech issue with Tracy dropping off and coming back. Yeah, we know that already. But if there are other things that you can give that is helpful for us to be able to know how we did and what are your creative ideas of how we can do it better, our learning curve is going crazy right now. And if you want to be a part of that, we welcome that. And we thank you so much for joining us. And we hope that you will share this with all the people around, with your friends here in Bishop, or with people wherever, because we really do want to create a community where people are able to worship God and to feel empowered and enriched in this particular moment in time. So thanks again for joining us. Let us know how it went for you. And we're looking forward to seeing your ideas and comments. God bless. Have a great week.